Wow. We'll get started here in just a moment.
I did.
Yeah, all those years.
So for those of you who haven't joined us before, we'll spend the first about 10-15 minutes going through some North Utica business. We'll hear from our community relations officer and our local representatives. And then we'll take a small intermission and we will stage the candidates at the dais, and then we will start the forum. Okay, so if you can, just please be patient with me during that initial portion. If you can, please rise and we'll all say the Pledge of Allegiance together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Please be seated. So what I'd like to do is, Jimmy from the Utica Police Department, he's part of the Community Relations Division. If you wouldn't mind coming up, Jimmy, and just giving us the monthly brief for North Utica. Yes. And for those of you again who haven't joined us before, UPD has been very, very kind to make sure we have a community relations officer here. It's been very helpful because it's identifies common trends in the area and it helps us kind of solve some of these problems like speeding or theft or those types of things. Go ahead, sir, please.
Short and sweet. There's nothing to report back to you guys. I looked at our call list. We had about 98 calls for the week for North Utica, which is fairly low. I checked our system that I don't see any trends or anything that I need to report back to you guys. So nothing alarming. Unless you guys got something for me. That's really it.
Well, there was two things. You did follow up for Mrs. Warren.
Yeah.
If you could just give everybody else kind of a summation for that, you took care of that.
Well, as far as, I guess she had a question about, I think it was 2 dogs that were abused and.
They were each locked in a small cage in the apartment. The guy walked out and left them to starve to death.
Mhm.
That's all I know. Has anybody heard about that or followed up with the SPCA?
Yeah, Syracuse.
Anybody know about that?
Syracuse ended up taking over that case.
Right.
I don't know what happened after that.
I just haven't.
Yeah, I
called.
contacted our animal control. They didn't have any information. They just said Syracuse took it over just because of the type of crime it was.
Thank you for.
Yeah.
I understand that somebody stole the car on my street, which is the first one here, Spring Place.
Stolen?
Is that right?
I don't know. I can check for you.
think
I just
so.
want a car and checks.
Yeah, my neighbor called me up to tell me about it.
Yeah, that's why it's always good. It doesn't matter where you live, just, a lot of people, we get comfortable because we live in nice areas, or just, sometimes we get complacent. We run in a store, let me just leave the car, on, and next thing you know, come outside,
Gone.
it's gone. You can also get a ticket for that too, leaving your car, left unattended, so.
Aren't there gadgets that they can use now electronically to start that car and take off with it? I understand that with Hyundai or Kia.
I don't know.
I don't know that much about it, but do you know anything about that?
That, what?
It's an electronic gadget of some kind to get into that car and then to take off with it.
No, I mean,
Never heard.
I think she's
Yeah,
talking about
I-
cloning the keyless remotes.
Oh, that's what it is?
I think,
yeah, I haven't heard of anything like that.
I heard something about that, but I don't know how.
Usually people just leave their, their keys in their ignition and just run into the store or run in their house and they come out and
Goodbye,
it's
car.
gone,
I know, that's bad too.
Perfect. Any other questions for Officer Jimmy?
Thank you.
Excellent. No news is good news. So hey,
Absolutely.
thanks so much for sitting here.
I'll be back there the whole meeting.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And I'd like to invite up our Oneida County Legislative Representative, Mr. Tony Leone. And I also would like to thank him for the desserts and beverages back there. So thank you very much, Tony. Appreciate you being here.
You're welcome. You're welcome. As I promised last month, I have more COVID test kits. If anybody wants them, they're free. The county has a supply of them, so I grabbed some. And if you need them, just come and see me, and if you need more next month, I can get them. What's going on this month in the county is, well, we got a new hospital. If anybody saw or went to the ribbon cutting last week ago Sunday, it was pretty spectacular. And I'm excited. I think everybody in Oneida County should be excited about this hospital. It's beautiful, state of the art. And hopefully we all get together and do not utilize it. The parking garage is coming along. It's gonna be a few months behind the hospital. Not much we can do about that at this point. Nexus Center has been a smashing success. They're busy there every weekend. The hotels and restaurants are just loving it. You're right. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this last month, but in April, we have the International Women's Hockey Tournament. They're gonna be here for about 11 or 12 days, I believe. And this is gonna be a big deal. When I say a big deal, the county has hired a special firm out of Lake Placid to help us make sure everything's done properly.
Did they say that they're expecting anywhere between 40 and 50,000 people?
I don't know the exact number, but I know it's a real, this is a big event. There'll be people from all over the world here. It's like having one section of the Olympics right here in Utica, New York. And it's gonna I believe it's around the first week in April of 2024. The 4th through the 16th maybe, or the 15th, somewhere around there.
A couple weeks.
Yeah. And there's gonna be a lot of people here. And like I said, county hired a special firm that specializes in this out of Lake Placid. And they're all being paid out of the bed tax that we have. Bed tax in the hotels has increased. Our sales tax has increased. As you heard, county executive announced the budget, and we have another 0% tax levy for everybody. So how does he keep it at 0%? The sales tax has gone up tremendously. We're getting a lot of sales tax from online sales that we weren't getting years ago. And whether you're like our sales tax rate or you don't, it's there. It's an even way for everybody to participate. If we didn't have the sales tax where it was, our property taxes would be going up. But if there's any questions, I can try to answer them for you.
Tony, it's April 4th through the 14th.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
just looked it up.
I knew it was April 4th was the start date. And the city's gonna be real busy that
Don't try
time.
to get a hotel room.
And don't try to get a hotel room there, no. Or go to a restaurant. Every restaurant's gonna be jam-packed. I understand that the Turning Stone is partnering up a little with some of the hotel space also. And what else is going on? I think that's about it at this point. It was the budget, the Nexus, the hospital. And as you can see, the progress in the parking garage is coming along.
And the medical
Yeah.
office. building.
The medical office building too, across from the Brooklyn Pickle. Yep.
Any updates on Harbor Point?
I think Joe can fill us in on that when Joe comes up, because Joe is on that Harbor Point Commission.
Good.
But he does have some news for you on that. And yes,
There was one today, I don't know.
there was one today.
Yes, and they have tours. They
Okay.
don't really did, they sent an email out.
Okay, I know on opening on the ribbon cutting day, they were giving tours in the hospital. And I guess if you call there, you might be able to get some information on that. Or check the website. I'm not exactly sure when or if. But Sunday is the day, 6 o'clock in the morning. They will start transporting patients from two hospitals to the new hospital. There'll be, every ambulance in the area is gonna be involved in this. And if you need emergency room service Sunday morning, you're gonna end up in the new hospital. If they bring you to the old hospital, they're gonna somehow get you to the new hospital. Because that emergency room, I'm told, is gonna open at 6 o'clock on Sunday morning. So it's an exciting time for us, I think.
I understand, Tony, that, most of the rooms are single bed rooms.
They are.
I think so, yeah.
Can be converted to double.
They are big enough.
Right.
We got a tour of the hospital about 2 months ago. And a lot of stuff was still not done
Yeah.
then. It was at least 2 months ago, might have been 3. But it's, we went into some of the surgical rooms and they're amazing. Very high tech, it's all state of the art.
Excellent.
And
They do have the capability at that hospital back during the pandemic. When they were saying they needed negative pressure in rooms to keep the, the illnesses from going, they do have the capability of making. Section of an entire floor under negative pressure. To do that,
Negative
to
pressure, good, that's what's needed with this
Yeah.
COVID.
So that's,
Mr. Briggs has an in the hospital,
Yes, we
his
do.
daughter-in-law, that's why he's very knowledgeable. Besides everything else, he's
I
not.
hear it all.
Well, Tom, just to tell you, when COVID came out 3 years ago, I called up the new. Whoever, medical, the administrator, the gentleman, they had just hired recently. And he said there were 4 rooms with negative pressure.
Okay.
That was it and COVID was here. So this is good that it was mentioned.
Any other questions for Mr. Leone? Excellent. Thank you
Okay.
so much, Tony. I really
Thank you.
appreciate you being
I got the kits if anybody wants them.
Excellent. Thank you, Tony. 6th Councilman, Mr. Joseph Beatrice is also here, and I'm sure he can field your question about Harbor Point. Just give him a second. Thank you.
Hey, Stefan, how are you? Nice to see you.
Good afternoon, Bill. How you doing? Good. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'll be brief because you guys aren't here to talk to me tonight, so. Couple things. Remember, you got to November 1st, your green waste. So with us, it's the Sunday. Actually, I pull it up. November 19th of no, what did I say? The 1st? I'm sorry. All right, it's that. I'm sorry. I'm
Got a night.
just getting off the throughway, so I'm a little flustered. So, yeah, you have to the 19th, but it goes on the same cycle of when they're picking your stuff up. So that Sunday would be our last one in our area here, okay? The second thing I want to talk about is, you guys, we talked about speeding on Riverside Drive. The police department, I made a couple phone calls, a couple other people did. We did a speed enforcement over there. I know Riverside Drive. Steve contacted me about that afterward and let me know that, it was a success. It's toward the end of the year now. So I am going to be, whatever new administration gets in there, I will be working to get the speed signs on Riverside Drive. That was the one, when I put them in for the other roads, Riverside Drive is kind of a bypass road since River Road is open. I never realized that there was that much of a speeding issue until recently. That's something I'll look into. There's no use trying to do that right now with 2 months going in this administration. I don't believe anything would get done. So the other thing I want to talk about is Harbor Point. So I'll tell you, I'm on the committee, and I will tell you, I'm going to go on a limb and speak and tell you next spring, you people will be able to walk the harbor. Okay. You'll be able to, there's going to be a floating dock in there. You'll be able to kayak in there. There's 2 bidders on restaurants. The construction will be underway. Those will not be, operating next year, but you will be able to take your family down there. There'll be picnic area, benches, to walk and hang out down there. So for most of you, I lived here my whole life, and you heard about the harbor for my whole life. It was going to be a project, and it really is coming in. There's already a developer on the Tavolo side that is committed, and to a housing project in there, upper end project. It's gonna have, there's gonna be a building that's a facilities building with a restaurant, gaming, like inside there. And it's not gonna be just for the people that live in that project. It's gonna be open to the public. That building will be there, okay?
So
And
it'll
it's
be like-
not gonna be,
It'll be like mixed use, commercial and residential.
yes, yes, okay. And it's more of a, it's gonna be more of a type places like Deerfield Place, those type, where there's gonna be 4 housing buildings, okay? And this other building that's gonna be like you know, a building that you could use for, like I'm speaking, recreation, a restaurant in there and stuff like that. But that stuff is quite a ways away, a couple of years away. The stuff what I'm talking about in the spring, you will be able to park your car, go down there, walk around. If there's gonna, you can rent a kayak, you know, you'll be able to use the harbor, you know, and I would think, just me speaking, I would think that if it gets busy and stuff, you know, maybe you'll see food trucks down there, maybe they'll have, you know, special nights, there's, you know, a band could play down there, stuff like that can happen. And the last thing I'll say before I take any questions, at the end of this road here, there's the Weaver Cemetery. Okay,
Yeah.
this Saturday, myself and Councilman Williamson, and 50 of the ROTC kids are gonna be working there. We had dirt dropped, they're gonna be redoing that cemetery. So I know that's something that everybody, I'm sorry, Legislator Leon will be there also, I'm sorry.
Mark
Mark did tell me that, he just told me,
today, yeah.
I was talking to my phone.
They're on Florida, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Cause
And then the last thing I'm gonna say quick, because there's a lot more people here that don't want to hear me talk. The last thing I'm gonna say, if all of us could just bow our heads, take a moment of silence for Mr. Payne, who Bob passed away. I went to his service today. He's a great man. I dealt with him in the private sector, and I got to see him a lot more the last 4 years, and he was a very, very good man. He passed away, and I just, you know, I know a lot of you guys that came here and our North Utica people know Mr. Payne, and
Yes.
it was a great guy. So
So
if anybody's got a questions, like I said, I'll answer anything I can. But other than that, let's have a great night, okay? And thank you, anybody who's not from North Utica or the 6th Ward, for coming here. You're welcome anytime. The last Monday of the month, or the second to the last Monday of the month. Fourth Monday of the month. So, okay, good to see all you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
appreciate it, Joe. Thanks.
And I don't have no purple on.
Then there's just 2 more quick announcements and then we'll take that intermission and our mayoral candidates will come forward. I think, did you still have something to say, Mr. Briggs? Yeah.
Yeah, to go along with Joe, Bob Payne was a pillar in North Utica. Bob was what I referred to as a quiet giver. Bob was the kind of person that if you needed to have something and you were running an event or something, you could go to Bob and Bob would make sure that he could help out any way he could. Very avid outdoorsman. Bob also sat on the board of directors that made this building possible. If it wasn't for, you know, people like Bob who put community first, we wouldn't have a facility like this. So I agree with Joe that if we can just have a moment of silence for Bob and think of all the good things that he did for North Utica. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Briggs. And then Nancy, I believe you had
Yes.
something you'd like to say about the craft show, craft fair.
I do want to thank everybody that came out on Saturday, October 14th to support our craft fair. It was our most successful event so far. We had 443 shoppers and our net revenue was $2,390, which for this size building and the spaces we have, that's pretty decent. Our committee members for the event were Jerry Button, Nancy Culver, Mary Sainsbury, and our additional helpers were Michelle Laporte, Bill Militello, Patrice Van Nortwick, Greg Carmen, and we had the wonderful Proctor ROTC cadets. Again, I want to thank you, everybody, for your support.
All right, folks, if you'll give us about 5 to 7 minutes, please feel free to grab some refreshment, use the restrooms. They're right through that center door back there. We'll get the candidates staged up here for you and we'll get started post haste.
Hello. How are you? How you doing? Very good, very good. How you been doing? Doing good. Yeah. Yep. Mike's leaving. Can you see the
So for those of you that came and signed in, there's also some sheets on the back table. It's the ground rules for the candidate forum. If you have any questions, please refer to those. There's several handouts in the back. All of the candidates have been briefed on this, and we've all agreed to kind of follow this format, just so you're aware. The questions were not pre-screened questions, so they will come from you, the audience. If you'd like to ask a question, I'd like you to raise your hand. You'll be acknowledged. And then if you could, we have a lot of people watching on Zoom. So just come up, ask your question in the microphone. That way everybody in the room can hear you. The folks on Zoom can hear you. And I will ask you whether that question is for, or you can let me know whether that question is for one specific candidate or it's for the entire panel. The panel will answer questions in a staggered order. So the person who starts and the person who finishes will always be different to give a fair experience to all the candidates. They are going to have a 2-minute opening where they'll introduce themselves, a 2-minute closing, and then they'll have 90 seconds. We'll do 90 seconds. They'll have 90 seconds to answer each of your questions. All right, does that make sense for everybody? Does anybody have any questions before we get started? Excellent, I really appreciate that. So if I could, I'd like to do the introduction, and then whoever would like to ask the first question, just be prepared once the final candidate does their introduction. Mr. Muhammad, you're in seat number 1. If you could, please. Your time starts when you start speaking.
Good evening. My name is Courtney Muhammad, born and raised in Utica, New York. Went off into the ministry at a point that I didn't expect. I went to SUNY IT, SUNY Poly today for business public management. Thought I might have been going into corporations, thought I might have been doing big things with big money. But right at the midstream, something called me into the ministry. So I spent 20 years as a chaplain for New York State Corrections. After I finished with New York State Corrections, traveling the entire state of New York, my mother got ill. She was around 85 years old, and she started, I don't claim Alzheimer's, but she started having dementia. And so that made me to be her full-time caretaker. And with that, for the last 6 years, I've been taking care of my mother. And on her passing, you might know of me and my story when you heard of the family that had to bury their loved one at the New Forest Cemetery by hand. So that went viral because at the time, being a lifetime resident of Utica, my mother had bought the plot in New Forest Cemetery 20 years before she had passed, where my father was. And the cemetery was abandoned.
Yeah.
And it just happened to be when she had passed away. So there was no one to dig or excavate the ground, no other cemetery, nobody did it, and we had to bury her. So the community came together and we decided to dig the grave ourselves. So with that said, at 89 years old, I didn't have rocks in my jaws, nor I was upset. I was more than happy to give my mother the best send-off that she could ever have, which was the community that she served for so many years and a son that she had given life to. And I see now why I'm here today, and maybe in my closing, I'll be able to explain that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is the first place we all stood here for the first debate of the entire season. Way back in, I believe it was March. So I'd like to start with what's the same. My original platform statement that I released on YouTube January 13th still holds true. A commitment to public safety, infrastructure, youth engagement, all the people that have always lived here, all the new people that have come here. This is a city that we have to provide services for. That's the commitment from the city. I wanted to restructure that around neighborhoods. That statement still rings true. I believe we've done a lot of great things downtown, but we've been hyper-focused on downtown. We need to start to restructure things around people who wake up and go to sleep in this city, and the smaller business districts throughout the city that actually support them. So let's get to a few things that have changed. I'm 20 pounds lighter because I've been going door to door endlessly. While my platform is still the same, my answers are still consistent. I now have yet again a citywide full mind thought that's come from the doorsteps of the people. That's how I ran my campaigns in 2015 and 2019. Another big difference is now I stand here with more confidence that I'm ready to be mayor because I have the backing of the police union. I have the backing of the fire union. I have the backing of Teamsters 294, the DPW union, and the state troopers, and even a local that runs all the entertainment, the stagehands union, who runs the Broadway, runs the Stanley, runs all of our entertainment that we enjoy. Those are the boots on the ground. Those are the people that run this city, and they're ready to move forward with me as their leader. That's something that I could take with me into November 7th. Is that 30 seconds? Oh, that was time. Oh, I gotta look for it. All right. Well,
You wanna finish the thought?
oh, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. All right. Just in short, I stand before you with 8 years of experience as council president. I have the knowledge to lead the city. I have the actual ability to lead and cheerlead without toxic positivity or toxic negativity, dealing with what's actually needed and necessary for the city. And I understand this community and simply want to take care of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bloomington.
All right, thank you.
Mrs. Friend, go ahead.
Thank you. So, hi, as Mike said, this is the last of many of these. I don't even want to try to count how many of these I've done. And at all of them, I have sort of like big general thing that I do in this opening statement. And I've done it so many times, you're tired of it, I'm tired of it. So I'm going to jump right to what I think are some really important issues for North Utica. So one, public safety. We all want public safety in every part of the city. In North Utica, that specifically means, one of the things that it means is speeding. And actually, Joe made reference to that. Speeding on Riverside Drive, speeding on Coventry, right? So you've got a lot of people that are using North Utica just as a path sort of to other parts of the state. So they're driving through North Utica in order to get to the Adirondacks. And so there's a lot of speeding. I think that we need to look very carefully at how we can make sure that people who are just passing through Utica don't necessarily drive right through your neighborhood, speed through your neighborhoods. Also, in terms of public safety, I'm committed to hiring an independent public safety commissioner whose full-time sole job will be thinking about public safety from the broadest range and longest term possible. Another thing specific to North Utica, I really care about sidewalks, and I've talked a lot about sidewalks. This is the part of the city that has the fewest sidewalks. Now, not everybody wants sidewalks, but for those people in North Utica who do want sidewalks, I'm committing to having the city help you get them. Third, not least, is flooding. So how many people here have suffered from flooding in one way or another? Right, many people in North Utica. North Utica flooding is very particular. It's different than flooding that we suffer from in other parts of the city. So we need to continue to work on our relationship with Deerfield. We need to continue to amend the budget, make sure we have enough funds. Last year, when I amended the budget to add money to our contractual stormwater line, I was really happy when Joe wanted to co-sponsor it with me, and we got it to pass and made sure that there's enough money in the budget for contractual stormwater, and that's something I'm committed to continuing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cardillo? Time will start when you start thinking.
Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. I know a lot of you were here for the primary forum. I know I've seen a lot of you here also in some of the meetings that I've attended. This is a very exciting time for our city. We have an opportunity for the first time in 12 years to elect a mayor who's not an incumbent, which means it's going to be new. And I think we've had the opportunity to talk to you all about our backgrounds because we've done so many of these. And it's been wonderful to be able to listen to the people of this community. Now, I have a difference between my two opponents and a little bit between Muhammad. They've served on the council. I have not. I've been out doing things. I've worked for the federal government, state government. I've had my own private company, and I've done development for this community. I've been involved in projects like ConMed, like Park Technology, like Camden Wire, when I was the regional director for Empire State Development. I also have had the opportunity to be a part of programs with the federal government, working for President Bush. Unfortunately, after 9/11, there was a lot of work to do, and I led the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation. The same thing after Katrina in Mississippi. I have the experience and I have the leadership capability to do this on day one. My pledge to this community is that I want to take that experience and all of the things that I have learned throughout a long history service to this community and to my country, to be able to come back home and do a wonderful job. So thank you.
Thank you to all the candidates for your opening statements. If we could, anybody that has the first question, you're welcome to come up to the podium. As I said before, we do not screen questions ahead of time, so we don't have question cue cards. So come on up. Don't be scared. All right. So we'll get the ball started then. I'll let you guys think for a minute, but we're gonna have to get a little more lively here. I can't ask all the questions. So, being that in your opening statement, a lot of your commentary had to do with public safety, I'd ask you to expand on your plan for public safety for the city of Utica. And being that Mr. Muhammad started, I'd like Mr. Galime to go first, and then we'll go right back around, if that makes sense. Great. All right, excellent, thank you. Come on, get excited, folks.
I have a question.
Oh, hold on. You'll be next. We're gonna answer the question on public safety, and then you'll be next. Thank you.
Okay. Just to get the ball rolling. Okay, so public safety. First and foremost, over the last 12 years, the mayor has been doubling as the public safety commissioner. We've all stated we're gonna bring on a public safety commissioner. I want to see that actual role defined as somebody who is a liaison, somebody who can deal with the business of tomorrow while our police chief and our fire chief are dealing with today. I want to see that person, somebody who absolutely will have negotiating ability, have the ability to work with the public, be the communication for public safety. Now, I want to establish something else. We have multiple other commissioners. Okay. Now, over the campaign, I've talked about the fact that public safety is more than just police and fire. It's how we deal with codes and nuisance abatements. It's how we maintain the streets in the winter to make sure public safety services can get to you when they're needed. That public safety commissioner will be under the direction and policy of the mayor and my administration to work collaboratively with all of those other commissioners that are chartered to actually perform the city business as appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is Friend.
90 seconds.
So one of the biggest challenges that we actually have in public safety in the city, specifically with regards to our police department, is retention and recruitment. So it's very hard for our police department to get enough people to want to apply to be police officers, and it's also hard to keep them, right? Not have them transfer out. So here's what I want to do to really help with that recruitment problem. I want to establish a police cadet academy. They're doing that in Syracuse. I've talked to the mayor there, Ben Walsh, about how it works. I want to look at what they're doing and how it has succeeded. And the reason that we need a cadet program is because you can't take the civil service exam to be a police officer until you're 20 and a half. So a young person who comes out of high school, knows that they want to serve in that capacity, doesn't want to go off to college, they have to kind of cool their heels for 2.5 years. That's a long time. And it's very hard to keep those young people engaged and have them actually return when they're 20 and a half and take the civil service exam. So I think that we should stand up a police cadet academy, and they spend 2.5 years or so as cadets. We give them the extra support that they need so that they pass their civil service exam, and the support that they need so that they pass their physical exam. So that when they're 20 and a half, they go ahead and they really are ready to take that civil service exam and become police officers. And in that intervening time, we've got a bunch of young people ready to do certain kinds of jobs for the city that are not full-blown police officers, but which can serve the city.
Excellent, thank you.
That's what he just done.
Mr. Cardillo.
Started high school in. Not wait till it graduates.
Just about 6 weeks ago, I announced a bold plan to make sure that our neighborhoods are secure. And part of that plan is to have police precincts in 5 neighborhoods. Cornhill, West Utica, East Utica, South Utica, and here in North Utica. The reason for that is to make sure that we have not just a police presence, but have this precinct be housed with people from the codes department, people from the fire department, people from all of our other agencies within city government, and to make sure that they are a part of the community. It also engages our young people. Our young people need to not be afraid of the police, but be an active part of what the police can do. I also want to take this a next level and be able to use it from the perspective of we have city properties that we can use, and we can take those properties and redevelop them. I've also want to be, and if worst case, we'll put a trailer there. Now, I can tell you, people have said, well, how are you going to fund it? Remember when we had the arson task force here years ago, when we were burning buildings like crazy? We had an arson task force that was funded by the Department of Justice. I will assure you, and I'll go to Washington the day after this election, and we will secure the funding to make sure that we have these neighborhood precincts. Because that's what's going to fight crime.
Mr. Muhammad.
My degree, my bachelor's degree is in is business public management. That's what my degree is from SUNY Poly. My career was as a chaplain, dealing with what they would consider the worst elements of society, understanding the minds of those who are so-called criminals. My platform is Heal Utica, Heal Utica. That's something that is spiritual for me. Heal means helping to elevate all lives. Utica, united together in collective action. And action is accepting the challenge to improve our neighborhoods. It's understood that public safety has to do with there's 5 levels of authority. The last level of authority is policing. But then you have family, you have church, you have education, and you have community. So when public safety has broken down, that means that these other areas have broken down. So I believe that the reason that I'm here today is not necessarily from the political realm, it's from the spiritual realm, that we have to start to build families again. We have to get people back in line with their God again. We have to get back to community life. So that's what I see as the answer to public safety, that we have broken down so much so far that we need to start to repair those areas that have been lacking in our community. And unfortunately, Utica is on the map for public safety issues. So I look to myself to be the public safety commissioner as mayor, because you have to be able to reach the people, not necessarily in their minds, but in their hearts. Thank you.
Quick rebuttal.
Yes, Mr. Whitney, go ahead. 30-second rebuttal.
Thank you. Real quick, 2 things. Councilperson Friend talked about the cadet program, talked about kids waiting to become police officers. A lot of police officers go to school, sometimes to get a criminal justice degree. A lot of times it's a 2-year degree. I discussed throughout this campaign an internship program. We'll be hiring kids from Proctor also to work within the police department. That is what we will be encouraging, for them to get that degree, so when they take the test, they're more prepared. Second, precincts. I have a near-term, immediate, actionable way to bring more uniformed division onto the street. That's actually bringing support staff for the actual clerical work that our uniform division is doing in the actual offices right now at the police department, instead of patrolling the streets in North Utica like you want. Those are 2 things that I'm going to do on day 1. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Are we running?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, I've been in the community for years. Even though I've been in the ministry, in the prisons, I've been active on the streets of Utica for over 35 years. I'm 58 years old, so I look a little bit younger, I think. But I've spoken with the police chiefs in the past, and they said we cannot arrest our way out of or man our way out of. It's really a community effort to change the condition that we're looking at. So even though I agree with policing, our police officers are well overburdened at this point. So we need to come up with another solution.
Thank you very much. All righty, ma'am, I believe you had a question?
Yes.
The question is for all of them.
Get up to the mic.
Anyhow, it's pretty evident to me that we need more people in the Department of Public Works because this city is dirty. I don't mean it's filthy dirty, but it needs a lot of cleaning up. And if you go to Vermont, you don't see all this litter that we got on our streets. So I was just wondering, would you hire more people for the Department of Public Works?
Excellent. And I believe we started with Galime, so Mrs. Friend.
That's a great question, and it's something I hear from people all across the city. So first of all, DPW was the department that was hit the hardest when Mayor Palmieri had to lay off a lot of people in order to sort of financially save us. So absolutely, we need to hire more people into the DPW. But there are a couple of other things that we can do to get at the litter problem. One is that blue bags are a big source of the litter in our city. People put them out, they get broken into, and the litter starts to spread. We can renegotiate our contract with the Oneida Herkimer Solid Waste Authority to move away from blue bags and open containers of recycling. You put out your open container of recycling, it's windy, that recycling ends up all over the city. So we need to go to the Oneida Herkimer Solid Waste Authority and be prepared to renegotiate our contract with them about how we deal with our solid waste. Also, we need to fully enforce the codes which require that dumpsters be enclosed on all sides, right? Because when dumpsters aren't enclosed on all sides and there's trash in them, they get blown away. And then third, I lost track, third. We need to put trash cans in more places, strategically put trash cans in the very places where we see a lot of litter, such as bus stops. So got to move beyond the blue bags, got to enclose our dumpsters, and we have to put trash cans where we need them.
Excellent. Thank you, Mrs. Friend. Mr. Cardillo. And by the way, if any of you need the question reiterated, by the time it comes up to turn, please let me know and I'll try.
790. I did get that cleaned up, you know.
Just today, I did a little Facebook interview, and it was up at the Parks Department garage. Both the Parks Department and the DPW are overworked. I mean, they don't have the staff. Part of it is, but yes, part of it was once COVID hit, then people didn't come back to work. And it's very difficult to get them to come back to work. I think of once we hit winter and these drivers have got us, and they're saying we're going to be in a La Nina and we're going to get more snow. So once these drivers have to start working overtime, and overtime, it's going to tax them. So one of the things that I thought about is that if we could have a program and work cooperatively with the county where we may be able to have kind of like a worker program with a lot of folks that are on public assistance. They'd rather have a job than be on public assistance. That's the way it should be. So why couldn't we have a program that's potentially funded between the feds and the state, working cooperatively with the county through Department of Social Services to get more people on board to work? Because no matter what, and I think the idea of better trash cans and things of that nature are great, but if we don't have more people, I don't know how they're going to be able to do the job. They couldn't continue to cut grass this summer. We had a rainy summer, so the grass was getting higher and higher and higher, and they didn't have enough people to cut. It's supply and demand. So that's
thank you, Mr. Mr. Muhammad.
Good question. You know, once again, from the spiritual side of it, my mother always taught me not to throw things down. But there's such a disconnect from our elders and our young people, and what I'm hearing on a regular basis, that as fast as you clean up, the mess is back out there again. So in my mind, there needs to be a revival. There has to be something that inspires and lifts the people up to want to take responsibility for their area. My Heal Utica movement, we have a block beautification program that is designed to engage the young people all the way up to the school system, back into the communities, to have a challenge to improve the neighborhoods. So there will be some programs, that there will be some money there also, but there will be other things involved, like fun for the young people to get back in line with the traditional ways that we used to have, which is taking care of what is around you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Before my time starts, I want to reiterate the question. Okay, your question was, as mayor, will we hire more DPW workers? Okay, okay. So the point blank answer is, as council president, years ago in my first term, I attempted to do that with the administration. It was during one of the contract negotiations. It was when we were talking about bringing people on because we had all these surpluses year over year. The discussion was, where does the city need more services? I said, look, it's DPW. They were the ones cut the most. They're the ones who need the assistance the most because they're the most overworked. That's one thing. I'm still committed to that. Two, something we can fix now. Every single year, we do not hire our temporary employees for the parks on time. We don't list the employees early enough. I've discussed this before with some of you in this room. Sometimes in June, we have 4 of the 12 people actually on maintaining the parks, mowing the lawns, doing what they have to do. That overworks the DPW more. So that's something immediately actionable without even having to bring on actual full-time staff so that we can actually reorganize that. Moving forward, everyone needs to understand that the actual tasks of the DPW right now are top-down. The mayor directs all the policy. I'm going to be working with the department head, the Commissioner of Public Works, to actually reorganize the roadmap of that department so we can actually move through our seasonal changes without overworking the employees within the scope of what we have now. And that's something that's already underway. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's go.
You know, my grandfather worked for DPW. He was parks with moonlighted, collecting trash. And it's always been a difficult job, but even more so, people don't even want to work at Dunkin' Donuts today, let alone DPW. It's a very hard job. And then, like I said, to continually have to see the city trash, there has to be some type of revival in order to change what they feel about their own city at this point. Thank you.
All right, excellent. We're ready for the second question. Yes, sir. If you could, just please speak your question right into the microphone back there.
It was stated earlier that on Sunday, St. Elizabeth's in South Utica is closing. For all of you, what are your plans for St. Elizabeth's to redevelop it, and what do you want to see there in the future? Thank you.
Excellent. We started with Mrs. Friend, so I believe Mr. Cardillo, that's first candidate to answer.
St. Elizabeth's is a huge issue. The new hospital is fantastic. Okay, but we have to be concerned with what happens to that piece of property. Now, I've had several points on this that I've announced. First of all, I think we really need to redevelop it for housing. Now, the question is what kind of housing? And I think we have to look at it from the perspective that it has to be welcoming to the current neighborhood. So the people in South Utica really need to be involved in what's going to happen with that hospital. Now, the issue is it's privately owned. So the city cannot dictate what they can do with that property. However, the mayor's got a bully pulpit. So the mayor's got to be able to really fight for what's going to happen at that property. So one of the things that I would do immediately, because this is going to happen quite quickly, now that we're moving people in to the new facility, post haste, that by January, we gotta have a plan, some kind of a plan that's gonna be enacted so that we know what's gonna happen. The mayor's already commissioned a study, but a study isn't gonna cut the mustard. We really gotta be able to know what we're gonna do, how we're gonna do it, and the way to do it is do it within the confines of the neighborhood. It's gotta look the same.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You know, of course, first of all, you know, the people of South Utica, you would like to hear from them. What they would like to see that turn into or not turn into. Personally, I have a son that's a new doctor. He's going to be at the new hospital. And I have a daughter that just became a phlebotomist. And, you know, my thing has always been health and wellness, Heal Utica, right? So I thought about the Falcon Clinic and some of the alternatives to the hospital, you know, pharmacy, you know, the new equipment, but a more holistic approach. That's what I use with my mother. So I would love to see that possibly turn into a different holistic homeopathic facility. We have an aging population that needs to know certain things that we haven't learned, and that could be a good place or a good start, possibly. But I would like to hear from the South Utica folks. Thank you.
Thank you. First and foremost, I want to state that we've already been through one of the studies that the hospital put forth, it was Fairweather Consulting, where they brought in the elected officials, they did community outreach, they brought in multiple different groups, they brought in different businesses to attempt to figure out what they wanted to do with it. That was very premature, very premature. It was long before the hospital was going to be complete. Fast forward till now. The question was, what do I believe it could be reused for? I have always listened to the constituents in that, and the constituents have consistently said they would like to see something congruent to the neighborhood. They want to see housing there. For me, if it's going to be housing, through talking to actual contractors and developers, developing it into something similar to Academy at Southgate, which are the condos in another part of South Utica, that was a very good suggestion from the people, and it was also mated with realistic goals from a contractor and a developer. Now, the other really interesting thing I've heard from the constituency is an educational facility, whether it's with trades, whether it's with hospitality, but we've actually seen some very good proposals, and I look forward to seeing those folded into the current study that's going on right now, which is sponsored by MVHS and Edge, and is coming together with the city to see what the market study will bear. But ultimately, I want to see it match what the residents actually would like to see. Thank you.
So the city a little while ago commissioned a housing study across the whole city, but that included the hospital. And one of the proposals that they made for the St. E site was, and that's a huge site. If you have never walked all the way through it, you might be surprised by just how large it is, 40 acres. And there is room there for, among other things, an entirely new neighborhood of single family market rate homes that would mimic the style of the Olmsted city, the Olmsted neighborhoods of behind and the side and alongside it, Valentine Bray, Douglas Crescent, Proctor Boulevard. So I think that that's a really exciting opportunity. 40 new market rate single family homes that the people out there are dying to buy. We just don't have enough of them in Utica. So I think that's one thing. I do think that housing is the most important thing that we should do with that site. We have a real housing crisis in Utica. We are the second fastest growing city in the entire state. We need to build as much housing as we can as quickly as possible. And in South Utica, again, the people have said they want something that will match and complement and support the beautiful neighborhoods that surround it. So that's an amazing opportunity that Utica hasn't seen in a long time, and I think we ought to take advantage of.
And I would just like to ask Mrs. Friend a follow-up. is there currently a proposal or how do the finances work for those market rate family homes? Because the average market rate home in
Right.
South Utica is somewhere between 250 and
Right.
350, and that would only be $12 million. So kind of, could you?
Right,
maybe-
so that was the housing commission that we studied a while ago. Now, as Mike referred to, the city, the county, MVHS and MVEG have all come together, pooled their resources, and are working on a redevelopment plan. And what that will mean is figuring out the finances of what it will take to make that site ready for a developer to come in and do that work. And that'll take some public investment, right? Because you have to build roads, you have to bring in electricity, you have to bring in stormwater and sewer and water and all of that. So there's a whole lot of infrastructure investments that we would have to make in order to make that parcel something that a private developer could then look at and say, okay, I can make this work. So, and we have to think about those public investments as a long-term investment in the future of our city, in creating new housing, in creating a future tax base, right? All those private single-family homes are gonna go onto the tax rolls, which is beautiful. So that's exactly the task of the study that is currently underway by a law firm out of Buffalo, which specializes in the redevelopment of hospital sites.
Thank you. And I would offer to the remainder of the candidates on the dais if you wanted to follow up, elaborate on, do you want to respond to Mrs. Friend?
Yeah,
Mr. Muhammad is an.
it's a, we'll go in order, yeah.
You know, I like the idea. There's a project going up on James Street that has a business incubator, a residence, and also a grocery store. So thinking further with the idea of housing paired with something that the residents can use, along with being a useful space, I think would actually help with the tax base in many different ways. And at the same time, not look to the new that's coming in, looked at the those that are here right now, and taking care of them.
Excellent. Mr. Woodard.
Yeah, I just wanted to discuss the market study that's going on right now, which I did bring up in my original response. That is intended to truly decide what the actual market study believes could go there. They're gonna go into the detail of what a phase 1 and phase 2 entails, what needs to be cleaned up, what potential public infrastructure may need to be there, depending on what is proposed and what somebody commits to. As a mayor, before I sign up for public contribution to that, I want to see that market. The second thing is MVHS. As part of that original plan, MVHS was bound to not only create a marketing plan, but establish that that site's ready for new use. Part of that out of the study, I would like to, when that concludes, see what the county and all of the actual people that were behind that original 300 million still have in mind. Are they gonna remove the oxygen tanks? Are they gonna actually prep that for the next potential development at any point? Or are they just telling us what they think it could be used for? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woodard. Mr. Cardillo.
Get a buyer for it.
One of my private clients is a company called Carmina Wood. They're a architect firm out of Buffalo. And Steve Carmina, who's the owner of the company, I took him up there. And they first looked into the fact that the main building, the older building, where Sister Rose Vincent was, and Sister Regina, that main building is on the National Historic Registry. So if you took a look at that building and looked at the property, and as Celeste said, it's a massive property. If you just took the original building, and it's a possibility, if you just took the original building and looked at it and potentially developed it for condominiums like Utica Catholic Academy. I actually lived there for a while, and there were beautiful condos, and around it, everything else has to go. It's got to be torn down. That could be single family dwellings. So I think we need to look at it from a different perspective so that There are other opportunities that we look at, not just one, but it definitely needs to be out. Definitely needs to be out.
Very true.
Thank you, sir. All right, we'll take another question from the audience, please. Yes, sir, if you would, please come up to the microphone. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Anthony Spina. I worked in prisons here in New York. I worked for the criminally insane and I retired from that. And I'm interested in how you people think about the Second Amendment. I own a pistol permit. I think everybody that is a citizen of the United States should be able to get a pistol permit to protect their family and other people. You could be in a grocery store and somebody come in and start shooting. You don't have a pistol to help that guy get him down, then you're in trouble. So I'm thinking that New York State should open up the pistol permits to everybody that's a citizen of the United States. And I serve my country, and I think that's just needed in this country.
Sir, I appreciate your comments. Let me just make sure I understand the question. What would our candidates do as a mayor as it pertains to our citizens' Second Amendment rights?
That's it. Yep, you got
That
it.
sound correct? Excellent. Mr. Mohammed? I
Thank
believe
you.
you're
Thank you
going
very
first.
much.
Thank you.
Just say,
Hold on.
small,
Hold on, Mrs.
oh, okay.
Hold on, please.
But I was just gonna say,
Go
address
ahead.
the chair, they're the chair.
Mention, there are signs.
Mrs. Borden, I'll get to you in just a second.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Mr. Mohammed, go ahead. You'll be next.
Yes, I too worked correction for 20 years and can understand what the gentleman is saying. I mean, as a mayor, obviously, the idea of gun violence is big. And the Second Amendment, obviously, as a mayor, that's not in my lane at this point. This is a federal and state issue. But without question, the safety of our communities depends on how cohesive we are. One of the things that I looked at the beginning of this nation, one nation under God, but it was understood that our union was what made us strong. And when this nation no longer is as tight as it should be, and it could be, that opens the door for all of the problems that we're having right now. So it's our union. When North Utica and South Utica are not together, when Cornhill and West Utica are not together, when the different immigrants and populations that are coming into this area are not wed together so we know what's going on in our communities, these are the problems that start to happen. So I'm one to strive to lift up the people so that we can start to unite, so that we can see the problem before it gets here. We know the crazies in our community, excuse me for saying that. But the reality for me is that there's a way to deal with them before it gets to be a problem. Thank you.
So two things, something personal about me. Second thing will be how I'll lead as mayor. First and foremost, I'm a pistol permit holder. I am. So I'm one of the people that has exercised the Second Amendment right, not only with pistols, but long guns. I'm an avid target shooter, skeet shooter. It's been part of my life since I was a child. As mayor, I will have a responsibility working with public safety to reduce gun violence, to get illegal guns out of youth hands, to make sure illegal guns come into the city much less. I'm not going to say I can stop because it's something we need to reduce. Now, even though the mayor doesn't have their hand in the Second Amendment, I want to structure something around that. I will be categorizing how those guns get into kids' hands, how legal guns become illegal and end up on our streets, how illegal guns come into our city from outside the county, from outside the state, and make it onto our streets and create the violence issues that we have when somebody decides to use a weapon to create violence. I'm going to do that from the perspective of somebody who has a pistol permit and make sure that we can reduce crime, get guns off the street, but still protect the Second Amendment. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I do think it's important to remember that mayors in the state of New York don't really have a lot of legal authority around this. but we are all obligated to follow the law, whether that's the law as determined by the Supreme Court, the law determined by the federal government, the law determined by the state of New York. And I will always uphold every law that all of those bodies put forward to us. Other than that, the mayor of the city of New York isn't going to be in a position to determine whether one can or should have a pistol permit. I believe that the situation is now, the law as it stands now is anyone who wants a pistol permit and doesn't sort of fall can have one, right? Mr. Galime has a pistol permit. As long as you don't have certain red flags such as domestic violence, a history of gun violence, things like that. In general, the default is Americans do already have the right to carry a pistol if they so choose, and they don't sort of get disqualified by some particular exemption. So that's the law as it stands now, and the mayor of Utica can't pass a law which in any way would contravene that.
And to carry.
Second Amendment is a constitutional right. And the minute we start fooling around with the Constitution, we're gonna have problems. However, Mr. Spina, I'll address it to you directly, sir. Think about some of these young kids. And I'm a member of the Utica School Board. And you all know we had that shooting at the football. These kids should not be having weapons. Okay? They're kids. Think about your own children. If they had that, what are you gonna do with it? And I'm gonna bring this back to my precinct plan. One of the things that I believe this precinct plan has the ability to do is to be in a neighborhood, to work within the community. This was done in Arbor Hill in Albany by Mayor Jerry Jennings, who was a friend of mine. He did a great job in Arbor Hill. We can do that same thing here, not to have the police force be somebody who you think you're going to fear, but to have that opportunity to be able to talk to them, feel comfortable with them. That's what we need to do. So I agree with your First Amendment right. It's a right by our Constitution, but remember what we're doing with these kids. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Well, I believe Mrs. Warden had something. Did you have a question, Mrs.
I
Warden?
forget what the question was. It was a while back.
You remember,
Something
we'll
about
circle back to
size.
you. I think this gentleman had his hand up. I think you'll be to catch that.
Okay, bring the mic up a little bit. I'm not gonna ask about the hospital, don't worry about it. I am gonna talk about the casino project. I was at the MDCC debate with the three of you, and I texted in this question, but for Mr. Muhammad. It's been a proposal of the county executive for a while to bring a casino either to the downtown area or to Harbor Point. Is that a part of your plan for healing Utica? Why or why not? And for the remaining three of you, after the debate, all three of you said that you opposed the casino during the debate, rather. After the debate, I spoke to the county executive, and he told me on camera, on the record, that one of the three of you expressed to him that you would support the casino if you were elected the mayor of the city. So, which of you was that? And for the rest of you, if you could give a little more explanation as to why you don't support the casino project. And if it's none of the three of you, then I've got some follow-up questions for the county executive. So thank you very much.
Excellent. What I would like to do is I'd like to stay in order. So if we could, I'd like Mr. Galime to be able to answer, and then Mr. Muhammad, you'll have the final word on it. We'll cycle back to you.
All right. That was interesting. So, what I do want to go back to, what was stated at the debate that the Sentinel sponsored. That's what I was trying to think, and the Chamber of Commerce. I said no, because the Nexus Center in U District was pitched as a family arts and entertainment district. And I've been quoted in the newspaper years ago saying I wouldn't support a casino connected to that actual facility, because I want that to be a family arts and entertainment district. And that's my stance on it. I hope it wasn't me who he said would support it, because I've been in the room with him a lot, and I understand that it's still something that's on the back burner. It's still posted on the website. I know it's gone through many other iterations, but we haven't discussed that in years, actually. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Mrs. Friend.
It does make me like run through all my mind, in my mind, the conversations I've had with Tony and wondering, did I say something that he misinterpreted? And I don't think so. I think that it's a very bad idea for Utica, whether we're talking about in the U district or at the harbor. I think gambling and I think a casino would attract, we already have a mental health crisis in the city. Let's not exacerbate it, right? So that's what I think. I also recognize that it may be very difficult to stop if the county executive gives a piece of land to the Oneida Nation and they have the sovereign rights on that piece of land to develop it however they see fit. And that's where I think you come in. I'm judging by the body language here that most of you agree that a casino would not be good for us. And I think most people in the city feel that way. And I think if push comes to shove, I hope that we will all stand up together and say to the county executive, we don't want that. It's not good for us. It's going to give us problems that we can't then solve. So I absolutely agree. I think a casino in any part of the city would be very bad for us.
I wrote an op-ed, this is, had to be now, but maybe 10 years ago, Rob, when the mayor, current mayor, was talking about having gambling on the canal. And I said, absolutely not. And the reason why is look at Atlantic City. Yeah, it was great. They poured a lot of money into Atlantic City and look at it now. It's horrible, right? Now, I'm not adverse to doing business with the Indians. Okay, I met with Ray Helbretter. Long time ago, I wanted to work with Helbretter to do something at the harbor, but not gamble. You can invest your money because why not use the deepest pocket in the area? They're clearly the deepest pocket, but not to gamble, not for gambling. Because as Mike said, you've got kids down there. My grandson plays hockey, right? I don't want him going down there and seeing all kind of people gambling. That's not the environment we want our kids to have. And if they're going to have this thing you announced in April that's going to be here, is that what we want to attract people to come to? They can gamble, but let them go to the casino. All right. And if Ray Helbretter wants to invest money downtown, fine, but not for gambling. Not for gambling.
He's right.
And Mr. Muhammad, go ahead, please.
It's contained there.
Because I am here.
Don't want to gamble on gambling, man. You know, I'm thankful to have colleagues that see that's not before I see it. And excuse me, but this used to be called Sin City.
Yes, oh yeah.
Still is. Still is.
That's why we need to hear. You know, so with that said, from another angle, I see the plagues of gambling in the inner city. It's a lot more than you can even imagine what's taking place in the inner city because someone wants to just throw away money at the casino. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of murders over gambling money in the inner city. So when you hear about the things that are going on in the inner city, you might connect it to drugs or gangs but you'll be surprised, a lot of it is connected to gambling. Unfortunately, let's stick to bingo, right? So with that said, I would hope that Helbretter, I've had conversation in the past with him, that if there is something on the county executive that we can stand together and say, let's not go backwards, let's go forward. And I believe that Utica, because of the dynamics of this city and how we have included not just the immigrants of the past, but we are including those who are coming here now, that we have a real unique mix that if we utilize what we have, I think Utica can be a shining beacon of light, not just for this surrounding area, but all the way to Buffalo and around this country. I believe that. Thank you.
Oh, you've got to call the county.
Yeah, can I have a quick, so just to be super clear,
What?
none of you have told the county executive you want or
Address him.
Hold on, hold on.
Yeah, just,
They,
sorry.
they addressed your question.
Okay.
Move on to the next one, because we
Very
got a ton of time. I believe we had someone, you were next, is that correct? And then we have a gentleman in the back of the room, you'll be after.
Hi, there's a lot of talk about community safety.
Go up closer to that,
Oh,
please.
sorry. There's been a lot of talk about community safety and violence in the city. Mr. Cardillo, you are a member of the Utica School Board. Mr. Galime, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe your mom was a teacher many
And a
years.
principal.
She was my English teacher.
Mhm.
But being that you two specifically are familiar with the school system and the school board especially, how would you as mayor work with the school system to combat some of the violence that's going on within the schools? Personally, my daughter's in 7th grade, came home last week. There was a suspension at middle school because a 7th grader pulled a knife on one of her friends. Why is this happening in our schools? We had the shooting at the football game. We had just last year, there was the stabbing in the school that went viral. Once again, the Utica City School District was on CNN for not a good reason. So as mayor, being familiar with the district, what will you guys do to help combat these issues?
Okay, what I would like to do is we'll try to keep the same flow, the same order, but Mr. Galime, if you would answer first, Mr. Cardillo, and then we'll go back down the line. Does that address your concern? We'll have the two school. We'll
Yeah,
the candidates answer first.
Sure.
Just go the attendance question.
Couple things. Okay, a few things. First off, my daughter will be at Proctor next year. She's in 8th grade now at Donovan. She will be there. So I am literally connected to this because my kids will be graduating from Proctor. Again, I do understand the school district. I graduated from it. My mother just recently, about 10 years ago, retired as a principal from it. Most recently, there was the shooting. So I want to start there. I'm already working with Jeff Lynch on the fact that as mayor, we will be working together for actual outreach within the school system so that he can spread his message to the kids and explain to them what that act did and how it affected him personally and his family and every single person around him, and then extend that to what is currently going to happen within the penal code to the person who pulled that trigger. Okay. Second is outreach. Okay, it's not just consequence. We have to actually catch kids before they take the wrong path. Between 6 and 10 and 12 and 18, we have to have actual programs. I am committing to that with working with Community Foundation and CDBG funding. Second is an internship program, build a bridge with the school district. I will be instantiating that internship program in all the different departments so that we can actually hire kids out of Proctor. So 90 seconds is a lot to explain, but I have multiple different plans that I will be executing if I'm elected. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Cardillo, and then we'll, Mr. Muhammad. Thank you.
We have a large inner city school district and Proctor's a big school. And we have a lot, think about this, we have 47 languages spoken in our high school. All right, so we're like New York City, but we're a mini New York City. So having said that, crime is an issue. And our new board, and we have worked on it, we've got all kinds of all kinds of ways for these kids to get in and out of the schools so that they're checked, they go through security, we have security guards, but things are gonna happen. What we gotta be able to do is educate these children, educate them, and this is not the path you wanna go down. Because this is the path, it's gonna be jail. Is that what you want out of your life as a young child? So I'm gonna go back to my precinct plan. One of the things that I talk about with the precinct plan is to have young people involved so that they feel comfortable. that they can talk to the police, they can talk to other people within the city departments. The other thing is I have said in my platform that I want youth involved in my administration. They will have a seat at the table. We don't need to tell them, have them tell us, or have us tell them what they need. They need to tell us what they need and how they can become better and more active. So it has to be done, but it's gonna be difficult within our school district just because of the sheer numbers that we have.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad.
And once again, being retired clergy and working corrections for so many years, and then hearing from those who have offended communities, you get a chance to understand where the deficits and the breakdowns are. Many of you don't know that literally the next day there were shootings in the city of Utica. The very next day. Many of you don't know that just about every day in the city, inner city, there's shootings. Now, myself and others, you probably heard of Patrick Johnson, Hoops and Dreams. 21 years ago, myself and Patrick Johnson came together to look at the problems of the inner city so that we can keep these things from happening and to move the community to more proactive things. Out of Hoops and Dreams came New Life Institute, whereas we had a check-in place where the young people were able to come in and vent what they were going through so that we can see what was on their mind. The one thing that we did discover is when you're 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, you can tell them all day long about prison and what the consequences of their actions are, and they just don't get it because they just have not matured enough. And then the idea of just locking them away, it doesn't change the equation because the same breakdown in the community is still there. We have to start to build the community up. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Friend.
So I'll start by saying that our school district has in fact come a long way when it comes to dealing with these issues. But of course, it's so distressful, so frightening when your kids are at school and you hear about an incident. The Proctor shooting, I could only imagine how frightening it was for every parent of any child who didn't even know whether the kid was at Proctor yet, right? So very frightening, very upsetting. I have a close, dear friend who recently, her 7-year-old boy got bullied at school. And it was really, felt terrible for her. And it felt terrible for me because I felt bad for her. Within one day, the school had actually called social workers who came in and did a really immediate intervention, intervened both with the boy who was being bullied, but more importantly, with the kids who were doing the bullying. And they managed to resolve it with 7-year-olds. So that's really important. That's an early intervention that's going to keep that child happy, he still wants to go to school, right? The most terrible thing is he likes school and then some days he didn't want to go to school. So I think those kinds of things that the school district is doing is really important. We need to have a collaborative relationship between the city, the school district, and nonprofits to offer those kinds of support services, but also to have a really active after-school program. If kids aren't on a good path, if we don't give them good things to do, they're going to do bad things. And so real long-term investment in community safety and public safety means making sure that all of our kids have good things to do. And the school district, the city, the mayor's office, and the nonprofits together need to work on that.
Excellent, thank you. And hold on, I have 2 more people, and then you'll be our final question. We're at that point of the night, so we'll take 3 more, and then that'll be it. I appreciate all your patience. Thank you. You've been very good sports. Sir, you had a question right back there. And then I believe Mr. Trent, and then Mrs. Warren, you'll be the final question.
Hello, my name is Matt Cavallari. I'm a elementary school teacher in the city. I'm required to do home visits regularly and listen to the parents. And a major theme almost to every visit is mental health and substance abuse that these kids are seeing firsthand. There seems to be a disconnect between the EMS getting there maybe immediately and then what happens after that. Do we have any goals or plans to help with this tragedy that, you know, I work with kids from kindergarten to fifth grade. So many of them are touched by overdose, alcohol, and, you know, I work with these kids and it's devastating to them. That's my questions.
Thank you, and just so we go back to the same order, Mrs. Friend, I believe you were.
Thank you for that question. So I said before, you know, we have a housing crisis in the city. We also have a mental health crisis in the city. We don't have enough resources getting directly to the people who need them. Part of the problem is that when if you are in need of mental health or say substance abuse health, you have to go yourself to the county office building and wait in a long line and see somebody in their office. We need to get those people out of their offices and out where people are living, in their streets, in their homes. So we need to be doing a lot more to offer those kinds of resources to families and children. And we need to figure out smarter ways to make sure that those resources get to the people who need them. That means collaboration between the county and the city, because most of those kinds of social services resources, those belong to the county. So the city needs to figure out how to better partner with the county so that we are helping people more effectively and getting mental health resources to people, getting substance abuse resources to people, and making those kinds of long-term investments in children.
Thank you. Mr. Cardillo.
First of all, let me thank you for being a teacher. You know, it's very hard to get people to want to teach. And that's going to be a problem down the road. And as you said, if you have students that are dealing with these kinds of issues, it makes it even more difficult because you're doing more than teaching. You're a teacher, you're a social worker, and it's difficult. And as a member of the school district, we have recognized and have actually increased the number of social workers that we've hired and people within the mental health aspect of our schools. But it's hard to find people because people don't want to come to work for those positions. So I really admire what you do. I admire what our teachers do, and the collaboration. I'll be in a different situation if I'm elected as mayor, and the collaboration between the city and the school district has to be stronger. You know, legally, they're two separate entities, and a lot of people don't realize that, but they're two separate entities legally. But I think it's important that they work cooperatively, and that's one of the things that I'll do. And I have colleagues on the school board that want to do that as well. So, again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Just one question.
Excellent question. That might be the reason why I'm here. I think Utica needs a healing. Mental health, absolutely. Physical health, absolutely has to do with what's going on internally. I remember being on the board of mental health because I looked at the condition and I quickly left it because I realized that there's nothing that you can do. I spoke to the DA in 2007 because working for the Department of Corrections, I seen the opioid addiction starting to come into the prison system and warned him that it was coming into Utica because of how addictive it was. And I remember DA Scott McNamara told me we have a prescription drug problem. We don't have a heroin problem yet. I said, but you will. Now it's the families. How could you have a mother or a parent that is on drugs? How do the children survive? So with that said, we went through it in the prison system. We're going through it in Utica. We have to get a more sensitive touch. That's why I say God, people in politics. It's now at a level that in order for us to keep our sovereignty, and I said this at another debate, America is under attack because of our sovereignty.
Right.
Our rights of free religion and freedom of speech is put us in the grace of God. But if we start to be eroded from our duty, that means to be moral and sane. our whole community is gonna be destroyed. That's what we're looking at right now. We have to start to rise up in a spiritual way to start to solve the problems that are mental and physical. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paul.
So to answer your question directly, I don't have an exact solution for you. You're talking about children who come to school who have witnessed their parents during a drug overdose. Okay. Clearly, you're doing what you can do to help them in that situation, and that's respected. I do want to touch on the drug addiction issue. People in this city bounce between homelessness, drug addiction, and mental health issues. Our SPOA services do what they can, they don't do enough because they can't connect people with the resources they need. Part of the problem with not connecting them with the resources they need is the fact that we don't have the resources they need any longer. That's a state issue that is driven through the county. Now, as a mayor, if I don't have my hand on the dial to fix something, I absolutely have my hand on the dial to construct the reason why we have a problem and work with the partnering resources to solve that problem. It's past SPOA services. It's more than just a lack of supporting housing. Part of it is actually how drug addiction clinics get people back in a life where they're not actually using. If you look at the programs, we spend 18 months. 12 months of that, they're recovering. Up to 18 months, they're still transitioning out. Sometimes they're not allowed to work. Sometimes they're placed in apartments where they have no furniture. It's an idle hands problem. It's a cyclical issue that I intend on addressing with the county and state. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mino. I believe we had a question from Mr. Trent, and then Mrs. Warden, you'll be the final question.
Thank you. If I don't forget.
I've been to several of these forums and little by little, it all starts to sound the same. And yet we have four very different people who we're looking at to potentially become the mayor of this city. So I've been wondering, based on what they've done, who they've been in the past or elsewhere, what can we expect from them in the future? And when it comes to Mr. Cardillo, I know he's been involved in government and politics locally, county, state, federal government. He has a law degree, a host of other experience. But one thing that stood out to me about him was that he served as the HUD disaster recovery lead for the redevelopment of the Mississippi Gulf Coast after Hurricane Katrina.
Interrupt you. Do you have a question?
Yes, and so my question is, I'd like to hear from Mr. Cardillo what more about what he did to redevelop the Mississippi Gulf Coast, because there's a lot to develop in Utica. When it comes to Mr. Galime, you work for Keysight Technologies, is that correct? I've gotten recent emails that the State Department finds radar company for unauthorized exports to China and Russia. Keysight Technologies agrees to pay $6.6 million dollar penalty and hire a compliance officer. The State Department find a Silicon Valley technology testing company that acknowledged.
Mr. Trent. For the sake of time, you have one question. So what I'd like to do.
My question to Mr. Galime is, you've worked for this company for a long time. I have State Department press release that confirms what the Wall Street Journal article said. I'd like to hear more from you about that.
Okay, so let me take your first two comments and let me structure them so everybody can answer.
Well,
Mr. Cardillo.
I have.
Yeah, we all have to answer it.
I have one other.
Even though it's about my job.
Oh,
From Miss Friend, and I didn't have anything before, but today in my mailbox, this card was there. I looked at it. Lots of folks from Utica have their shirt on that says Celeste Friend. I recognized some of the people and I flipped it over and looked at their address side. And here on the address side, it says paid for by True Majority PAC, Political Action Committee.
So,
On the 24th
Mr.
floor
Trent.
of a building on 7th Avenue.
Mr. Trent,
What could, based on these things,
Mr. Trent.
what can we expect from these people here?
I will direct them to answer your questions, but that's enough. Thank you.
That's it.
So, Mr. Cardillo, I believe there's a question directed to you about your background in developing. So what I'd like to candidates, what I'd like to do is, I'd like to direct you to answer, if Mr. Trent had a question directed at you. The other two candidates, I will give you an equal amount of time to respond about your professional background. Does that seem fair?
Answer the question.
Yeah, I think the only person not answered the direct questions was, Mr. Muhammad.
All three.
Okay, so I'll let Mr. Cardillo start, and then Mr. Muhammad, I'll let you play cleanup at the back end, and I'll give you on time. Is that fair? Excellent, thank you.
How do we feel to divide the two stuff?
Go ahead, Mr. Cardillo, thank you. Always wanted her.
Hurricane Katrina. If you ever saw devastation,
The dikes broke.
it was just horrible, absolutely.
Lake Charles.
I made sure that my sons, and one of my sons are here tonight, came down to see the devastation. And I said to them, just take a look at this. Some of these people will never come back. Never come back. I mean, that's how bad it was. So what did I do for Hurricane Katrina? I got a call from the White House and they said, will you go down? And I went down to New Orleans first. I was there for 2 months and then I wound up going to Jackson, Mississippi, worked with Governor Haley Barbour, and we really worked on redeveloping the Gulf Coast. It was called the Mississippi Recovery. So it was working with first responders, it was working with developers, it was working with all the people that we needed to put together to make sure that they got back on their feet. And I'm proud to say that it was, after an awful disaster, it was a wonderful thing to be a part of because I really could see the fruits of my labor. And I made some great friends in Mississippi. They still call. They still want to know what's going on. They still want me to send them sausage and peppers. They still want me to send them some cannolis every now and then. But it was a wonderful way. And that's the experience I want to bring to this office, working with developers, first responders, police. I work with every facet of government from top down. So that's what I did during Hurricane Katrina.
Thank you, Mr. Cardillo.
Yeah, just give me like 10 seconds to figure out I could talk about this. It's a publicly traded company and I don't want to get fired tomorrow morning.
Sure.
Yes. I guess I'd like to start here. I have a vast career in software and hardware engineering, integration and development. Started at Rome Labs when I was a kid. And what I always wanted to do was have an office downtown. In 2008, actually Mayor Rafaro did a ribbon cutting for a company called Datacom Systems. I was the person who sited the office, I was the site manager, and I was the actual manager for the build up of the entire software engineering department for that company in Syracuse, but I did it downtown. That company, I designed some technology for with another FPGA engineer. That technology was purchased by a company called Ixia. Okay, we took a ride, took jobs. I didn't make any money on it, fortunately. Not independently wealthy, even though I invented that stuff, right? But we took a ride to the new company. That was Ixia. Then Ixia was purchased by Keysight. So I just wanted to establish how Keysight came into the picture here. Now, with reference to the I got to finish this somehow here because of the nature of the question. So I apologize if I go a little over. It's a publicly traded company. I currently work for that company. I'm also campaigning to be mayor and signed forms, no different than the forms that I signed saying I would be a full-time mayor. Okay, and that I'm gonna be running this campaign throughout the year. That I can't say anything based on someone's discussion on that and potentially harm the company. So I really don't know how to answer that question, because basically it's a Wall Street Journal article apparently that there was exports to China. I'd have to go through that and talk to the company about it, see what could even be publicly discussed, depending on what's in that list. So I just wanted to humor the question, but most interesting question I've ever had in my 3 citywide runs. Thank you. Yeah.
And Mrs. Frank, go ahead.
I'm not really sure what the question was, but I'm pretty sure that Mr. Trent was holding up a mailer that I didn't send. Yep, I see it. Yep. So I didn't send that, and I didn't design it, I didn't pay for it. So I'm going to assume that that's something that and I'm going to get a little bit wonky for a second, that's called an independent expenditure, where another group can send something out on behalf of a candidate they like, as long as they don't, it's called coordination. You can't design it, you can't know what's good in it, they can't say, hey, what issues do you want to talk about? You can't talk to them about it. I assume that that's what it is. You said you got that today, Mr. Trent?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I can't really speak to it. There is the front photograph is my photograph, but that's something that they could have lifted off of a website. So that's I'm actually I'm pleased somebody's out there doing an independent expenditure on my behalf. Awesome. And I thank them, whoever they are. I can't know who they are. That's how coordination works, or it doesn't work. So that I can't really say much about it, but I'm not sure that Mr. Trent had a very specific question, just sort of like, oh, what's this postcard? So yeah.
Well, thank you for your answer.
Yeah.
Mr. Muhammad, I'll give you an equal amount of time if you want to reference some of your. 1 minute. How much fluid?
Hey, for y'all that don't know Tim Trent, I do. And just to say, Tim Trent is dear to my heart, because we were in the trenches in the 90s, in the early 2000s, trying to do the work of the community. So I understand his passion. I get where he's coming from. Sometimes back then we got cut off a lot because we were really passionate about what we were doing. So when it comes to China, I said something in another debate, we need to talk to Walmart about getting some locally owned products into Walmart. If there's not any there needs to be more there. And as far as Katrina, that was a mess. Simple and plain. Unfortunately, and I have a little bit of information about that, but this is not the time to talk about it. But hopefully we could do a better job than what took place down there.
Thank you. Thank you. And Mrs. Warden, do you have any questions?
Yeah, the final. I'm going back a bit as far as building a child's esteem, self-esteem, which is so vital from when they're born. But if it hasn't happened by the time they get into high school, I think, what's going on with BOCES? You're on the board. What is going on with BOCES at Proctor? Is it all established? Is it working now?
Is the question related to their run as mayor, and are you going to ask?
Yes, I was wondering, Mr. Cardillo was on the board of the school and he wants to be mayor.
Sure.
But the thing is, can you tell me the status of it, of BOCES? Is it?
Well, it's more than BOCES. It's actually pretty exciting. We've got the new building. The ground hasn't broken yet, but we've gotten the funding. We're building a new CTE building adjacent to, if you look at Proctor, it's near where the tennis courts are, on that end of the building. New CTE that's going to be, as a matter of fact, part of what I did today, I was talking to the buildings and trades, and we're going to have programs that are going to be done now right on campus. They don't have to go to BOCES. So they're going to be right in school. Because one of the problems that we had was that students had to leave Proctor, go to BOCES, 20 minutes there, 20 minutes back, teacher schedules, whatever. So I believe we're going to be breaking ground next year in the fall of in the spring, I'm sorry, of 24. This is going to be exciting. because you're gonna have programs that these kids can take. And to me, it's all about a job.
That's right.
Now they're gonna have a skill. So if you wanna talk about how we can help kids, now they have a job, now they have a skill,
Right.
and now we work with the trades, because the trades are clamoring for people.
Wonderful.
They can't find them. So this is a great program for the district, and it eliminates that trucking back and forth to BOCES. So I hope that answers your question, but
It does.
it's exciting. It's very exciting.
That's one of the
Excellent.
main concerns.
Thank you, Mrs. Warden, but I
Thank
want to
you.
afford the rest of the candidates an opportunity to talk a little bit about your thoughts on vocational or skills-based training. And it would be Mr. Muhammad, I believe you're next in line.
To your question, that's a big part of healing Utica. And as I said, as an investor, you know, if you get the most out of your buck, 15% of our population is 100% of our future. So where would you invest? So that's the breakdown in the city of Utica right now. This is what we've been working on without city government, without the resources, without education being a part of it. So I don't stand here as someone that's trying to be a politician. I'm trying to be the solution and trying to look behind the curtain to find out why the resources have not been there. And then I've heard the same thing year after year after year. And I don't see my city getting better as far as the population. I see the economic development. I do see the financial change, and I embrace that. That's the business side of me. But the public management side of me says that everybody is not included in that picture. So we have a skills bank. We have a absolute way to connect with that group of individuals that you're talking about, because we've done it without resources. So when you talk about the things that many don't know about in the community, those in the community have been working on a regular basis, trying to fill those gaps. Without education, without city government, without those who have the resources there to help us. I want to be able to unify those resources. I want to be able to come with the passion that my brother Trent comes with to say we got to make a change right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, so regarding the CTE program, I could have stood here and many others could have iterated through the same information through the engagement the school board had and what we've learned and what's going to actually happen when they break ground. Trades is one of them, multiple other things. It's good. But I want to address something different, something similar to what Courtney Muhammad stated. It's youth engagement. 2015 and 2019 and now, okay, that is literally after public safety. The number one thing every single person on a doorstep states, no matter what neighborhood you're in. About 5 years ago, I worked with Freddie Hamilton to try and reopen a youth engagement center in Cornhill, and the reality was there was no reception for it. We've tried to restructure and say over and over and over again, we have CDBG funding. We use the funding the same way over and over and over again. As mayor, that's why for the past almost a year now, I've committed to the fact that whether it's through the community foundation, whether it's through CDBG funding, we are going to bring everybody back to the table. And we are going to have programs for 6 to 12-year-olds, which might be more involved with grade school, and then have programs out of school, which are 12 to 18, those older kids. Once you start to lose them, you got to start working on them when they're young, though, in grade school. Otherwise, it's idle hands, they're already lost. The last thing I wanted to state is trades. I've actually had conversations with the trades unions so that if we create these programs in the underprivileged neighborhoods that are less served than others, we will have the support of the trades unions to come in and also outside the CTE wing, provide that outside the scope of school to bolster the fact that a career is the path to prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I also, of course, agree that the CTE wing is terrific. It's a big step in the right direction. I think that one of the things that we all want is for our young people to stay in this community. One of the things that Utica has really suffered from a lot in the last 30 years is young people moving away to find better jobs somewhere else. One of the really exciting things that's beginning to happen is that you see people coming back now with their own families to come back to Utica to raise their kids here down the street from their parents or across town from their parents. So how do we make sure that young people stay in this community? It's by offering them good jobs. And there's a lot of really exciting stuff happening. Wolf Speed, the new hospital, the Nano Center, which is slowly but surely offering better jobs. So we need the CTE wing. We need to work with MVCC on various kinds of certificate training programs that they can give. And we need to work with unions. One of the things that I was very proud to have done while I've been on the council has been to stand up with the workers at the zoo when they decided to organize, and also to try to bring strong apprenticeship training program language to the city code, all of the kinds of things which will support strong jobs, well-paying jobs, so that people can stay in our community where they want to stay and not have to leave for a better job somewhere else.
Thank you.
We're about to do closing statements. Would you like to read it in your closing statement?
That's it, let's do it, man.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
That's fine.
go for it. Yeah.
And once again, just to be clear, as the gentleman said, we have a mental health and a drug problem that is not going away. So we have all the grandiose ideas of what we need to do, but sometimes it's a little too late. We need to deal with the human element right now. That's why I believe that someone in the position of mayor right now, 4 years from now, maybe we'll correct this, but right now we have to deal with the people and then start to bring the resources. And that's where I believe that we're coming in.
Excellent. Thank you for your comments. And I would like to allow our candidates to do your final closing statement. So that'll be 2 minutes. And based on the current order, Mr. Muhammad, you'll be going first. Mr. Cardillo.
I went first,
Right. Even though. Right.
It's all right. Remember, I kept the winning.
Yeah, I'm back in your seat. I'm offering myself as a write-in candidate, as another choice. I came into this very late. God inspired me way after all of the fields were already taken. And I looked, but when I did enter the race, I looked for signs. And one of them, just want to take you down a path. I wondered what Utica, where did the name Utica come from? And I thought it was a Native American name because all Onondaga, Mohawk, Oneida, but Utica is not a Indian name. Utica comes from a city in the northern part of Africa. And it was the capital city of the province of Africa under Rome. Being a spiritual man, I wanted to find the significance of why did someone name this Utica, right? From that over there. Well, in 246 AD, there is a story about from 153 to 300 martyrs, individuals who gave their life for God in Christ instead of bowing down to pagan gods. And I said, it's no coincidence when you come in a certain way, there's no coincidence that somebody named this Utica and then Rome is right over there. So I see something happening in Utica that's more than just a political race. I believe that God has chosen this time, this hour for something different, for a change. Otherwise, I would never have entertained politics. So with that said, I've offered myself as another choice. God made it very difficult. You would actually have to write my name in. So may God bless you. Thank you. Peace.
So I'm gonna start this just the way I started in January 13th. I am Mike Galime. I'm running for mayor. You've heard that about 1,000 times. In all seriousness, though, we're choosing who's gonna lead the city. We have to decide who's prepared to lead the city. Who will make decisions, consistent decisions that represent us, represent our neighbors, represent our families, represent everyone. Over the past 8 years, as council president, I've consistently led the council through a host of decisions, whether it was the asphalt plant, multiple different property transactions, the council attempting to get rid of public comment, different restructurings of the council, And what I've always done is maintained integrity in the fact that I want the people represented. The people of the city of Utica. For me, it's personal, not just because I grew up here, but because I've watched so many grow up here. I'm watching my children grow up here. I'm watching my parents grow old here. I want to take care of this city so that not only can we become modern and continue to redevelop and bring new jobs and new technologies, I want to ensure that we maintain the family and community-oriented Utica that we've always been. The reason we've been so accepting to refugees is because of our community and family-oriented attitude and well-being in this city. And no matter what, that's what we can't walk away from. So I have the experience, the knowledge, and the capability compiled on my 8 years of experience as council president and working in every facet of city government, and my private sector experience as project manager, personnel manager, and now a business development director to actually take the city forward. And I'm asking your vote to do so. Thank you. Thank you.
So 4 years ago, almost to the day, I was elected to the Common Council. And this has been the most gratifying and hardest thing I've ever done with myself. With whatever talents I have and skills I have and commitment I have and passion I have for this place. I've never done anything harder, and I've never done anything that I've enjoyed more. And those aren't like sort of in competition with each other, right? It's the challenge of being a council person, of serving in government, is exactly what makes it so gratifying. So in that time, I've done a lot to fight for the people of Utica. And I have fought for the people of Utica, despite getting pushback, not only from the other party, but from my own party. And I've stood up to everyone on the council in order to do what I thought was right. So I'm the one that returned term limits to 8 years. So in 1992, people all across this city voted on a referendum, which made term limits 8 years. In 2017, the mayor convinced members of the council to extend his term so that he could serve for 12 years. And in 2020, I brought the local law that returned term limits. I did that because it was what the people of this city wanted, but also what they deserved. So it's been the hardest thing I've ever done, the best thing I've ever done. And one of the other things that has happened as a result of that is that I've developed a big vision for the future of this city. And that's a vision that includes all of us, that includes all of our neighborhoods, that includes a future in which we never again override the will of the voters because it's convenient for some people to do so. A vision in which we can make this city good for our children, good for our grandchildren, right? This city can be made ready for the future, and we can make smart investments which will sustain us for generations to come. I'm ready to do that work. I want to do that work, and I'm asking for your vote on November 7th.
Qualities of a mayor. Mayor has to be a leader. A mayor has to be a mentor. Mayor has to be a thinker. Mayor has to be a compromiser. Mayor has to have empathy. And a mayor has to be able to listen to the people. But sometimes a mayor may have to say things that, or make decisions that you may not necessarily agree with, or at least not everyone. So a mayor has to be willing to stand up and do what's right. This is not an easy job. I didn't do this because I thought it was just something fun to do and it'd be an easy job. Somebody asked me the question about Hurricane Katrina. I look at it like that. It's like putting people back together again, putting our neighborhoods back together again, because that's the issue. Now, we've done a great job downtown. It looks beautiful, but not the neighborhoods. And that's what I've stressed since I announced my candidacy last November. It's been all about the neighborhoods. And I can tell you that I will work tirelessly to get that done. And we will get that done. We'll get it done together because you all have the opportunity to help this community. And I'm gonna enlist that help from people like yourselves. Being able to go within the neighborhoods, asking people what do they need, what's necessary. Same thing with our youth. So what I can say is I'd like to leave you with these words. They're words from George Bernard Shaw, and Bobby Kennedy used these words. Some men see things as they are and say, why? I dream things that never were and ask, why not?
Can I make a request of the forum?
Yes.
We've all been through this now. You hosted the first forum. And I was curious, and I'd like to float this with the room. Many of the forums have been live streamed. People can go back and see where we've all come from and what we've done. You hosted the very first one, and if possible, if that could be released so that all the constituents can see the very first debate we had.
Sure.
That would be great, because I think that would be valuable to not only the constituents, but our decisions as we move forward to November.
Absolutely. No, that's not a problem. As Mr. Galime mentioned, we do offer Zoom, and that Zoom does archive these forums. The issue with that is, of course, it's a very large file, so it's not as simple as being able to email it out to everybody, or that's something we would have already done. If you have a thumbstick or
Could you get it up onto YouTube?
do we have a YouTube for N.U.N.A? I don't know if we have.
It would take.
That is a viable option.
Take you
We'll look
3 or 4
into.
minutes to set up a YouTube
Yeah,
account.
sure. That is something we'll look into, but the other option would be, if you request it, you have a thumbstick, we'll make sure that you get it, and then you can.
So-
Post it in all of your.
I mean, that's not a bad fallback, a thumb drive.
Yeah, I wasn't
But
worried about
just-
me per se.
No, I know,
So
but just
people-
getting it up
yeah,
on YouTube
sure.
is gonna be the most efficient thing for everybody.
I think that's a very good idea. I know some of the neighborhood associations do have a YouTube, and it's something that they use, so.
It takes 5 minutes to set it up.
Sure.
Great.
Excellent. No, very good point. Thank you very much.
I do have yours actually up on the West Utica site.
Excellent. Thank you.
First one.
I
Oh,
appreciate
the
it.
first one is on the West Utica site.
Oh,
I know a lot, I know some people
Well done.
individually recorded it, so
Well done, Amy.
much appreciated. And I know that we'll work with the other neighborhood associations to make sure we cover
So I'm gonna-
those types of things.
Thank
Well, well, I'd like to have all of us thank our candidates for being so great. I also would like to thank you, the audience. I really appreciate your respectful demeanor, and I appreciate you allowing us to get this done in a fairly timely manner. Sorry about the 90 minutes.
Fine.
The last thing that I'd like to do before we adjourn the meeting is do our 50-50 drawing. So if we could, we'll shake it up. So it's not me doing the drawing, Mr. Cardillo.
Send every who I.
I'm okay.
No. That's that.
Let's say, okay, there you go. Step one.
Give us this guy.
All right. Winning ticket for the 50-50 raffle. What is the prize, Mrs. From $50 for the first prize?
It's a chance.
So 512008. 512008. Excellent. And as I know, we have 2 additional prizes. We've got some gift baskets back there. So the next one is 512038. 512038 is the second prize.
Was the first one?
The first one was 512008. Yeah. Okay, that one's not answering, so we'll go to the next one. Second one, 512038. All right, you're number 2. Excellent.
See?
Number 3, third gift basket, 512073. 512073. Excellent. If you wouldn't mind claiming your prize in the back, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us this evening, and the meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here. This is Friend. Thank